God-level hidden skills at the beginning. I have seen everything. Chapter 1. No. Where did you come from? Is this still in China? Where has my 300 square meter villa gone? My kids are still at home. This joke is not funny at all. Awakened by the noisy sound, Zuo Chenggen found himself lying in an empty room with two more door keys in his pocket. Apart from a shield and an axe, there was only one door in the room, and not even a bed. Where is this? Before he could understand the current situation, Zuo Chenggen was attracted by the quarrel outside the door, opened the door and walked out. Outside the door is a very spacious corridor, with complete walls at both ends, like a secret room. In the 3-meter-wide corridor, 7 people gathered together to discuss in panic. Zuo Chenggen was awakened by their voices just now. The 8 rooms in the corridor correspond to 8 people. It seems that the men, women and children talking in the corridor are the residents of these rooms. After listening for a while, Zuo Chenggen knew that everyone was in the same situation as him. One second he was doing his own thing, and the next second he was teleported here. Thinking of the recent frequent disappearances, Zuo Chenggen knew that they were probably among the missing persons. At first, people thought that the disappearance was just an isolated case, but as the number of missing people increased and the methods of disappearance became more and more bizarre, they gradually started to pay more attention to it. For example, in the dormitory, someone heard his roommate getting up to go to the toilet, but never heard her coming back. I got up while laughing and cursing, "Dad has brought you paper." But when I walked to the bathroom, I saw it was empty. I went back to check the beds of other roommates, and all the people who were supposed to be sleeping soundly on them disappeared. There were also sudden serial car accidents, with no one inside the vehicle involved, and people who turned into the alley and wanted to take a shortcut never came out again. There are countless examples of similar disappearances. People who have not yet disappeared are in panic all day long. They hope that the disappearance event will happen to them, so that they can be happy, and they also pray that they can live longer. Now it seems that the disappeared person did not die, but was pulled into the survival game. The reason why he must have been pulled into the survival game is because Zuo Chenggen saw the personal information panel in front of him. I regret to inform you that you have joined the world survival game. Please clear the copy carefully and try to survive. Player: Zuo Chenggen. Level: not on the ladder. Spirit: 97/100. Physique: 6. Poisoned by technology and ruthless activities. Strength: 5. Speed: 7. Props: Newcomer Support Gift Pack X1. Skill: none. Suppressing his shock, Zuo Chenggen thought, and that Newcomer Support Gift Pack in the item bar was opened. A dazzling white light flashed, but what appeared was a mess of garbled codes. Congratulations on getting asterisk. Error. 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 System error. The system is being repaired. Repair failed. The system is being repaired. Repair failed. Repair successful. Congratulations on obtaining the only skill in the world survival game, Eye of Truth. After a series of blood-red error pop-ups, Zuo Chenggen's panel interface finally returned to normal. He checked again and made sure that there were no changes except for the Eye of True skill in the skill bar. No. There are changes. In Zuo Chenggen's eyes, around him and the people discussing in the corridor. Floating in them all was an eyeball with a blood vessel as long as a forearm trailing behind it. He was sure and certain that before he got the Eye of True skill. There is no eyeball around this group of people. At this time, lines of text floating in the air appeared in Zuo Chenggen's sight. Look what I found. A live broadcast room for newcomers. It's true that Changming Technology has another batch of newcomers coming without notifying the distinguished VIP members. I came early, there are too many people, I guess we haven't started to reduce the number of people yet. This batch of newcomers seems to be of average quality. Which version is this? If it is too difficult, it will be boring if the team is destroyed. Anyway, it's just a simple level 1 book, and it comes with free weapons at the beginning, so even the weakest can get through it. Heha, this human looks pretty good, is he still a student? Let me take a good look. As soon as this barrage appeared, in Zuo Chenggen's sight, the eyeballs of a girl wearing a school uniform and short sleeves moved. It swung its long tail with blood vessels behind it, got close to the girl's face, and took a close-up of her face. Then he explored the body that was half covered by his sleeves. The girl in school uniform with short sleeves was unaware of all this and was still discussing with others how to leave. Because one eyeball was occupied, there were many dissatisfied voices in the barrage floating in the air. There are only a few cameras in the first-level dungeon. You moved one away to see a close-up. We also want to see the panorama. Why do I have money? If you have the ability, why don't you buy a camera too? Zuo Chenggen finally knew the function of these eyeballs. They were used to observe players. Eye of Truth. Category: Passive Skills. Effect: See the real world. Restrictions: None. Description: Someone has to break the shackles. The Eye of Truth, the real world. Is this the real world? Humans are just clowns in the eyes of existence. When Zuo Chenggen saw his own panel, everyone gathered together to discuss also saw their own. After knowing that he could not go back and became a missing person in the eyes of the public. A woman dressed as a woman covered her face and cried bitterly. She was cooking in the kitchen before she was pulled into the game. I wonder if the children at home cried when they found out that she was missing, and whether they turned off the gas stove. The honest man in simple clothes also clenched his backpack and remained silent. Before entering the game, he was in the bank's automatic teller machine. In his bag was the surgery fee for his mother's treatment. But world games don't give people time to adjust their emotions. Copy. Screaming Night. Number 12441. Mission: Survive. Task time: 7 days. Game time. Tip: Hunters will appear in the corridor when it gets dark, and the door to the room can provide protection to a certain extent. There are still 5 minutes until dark. The 8 people in the corridor discovered that the bricks on one side of the wall disappeared and turned into a huge carved window. The strange thing is that the carvings on windows are generally decorative, but the carvings on these windows are 3-headed monkey-like creatures, each one uglier than the last. It's in very bad taste. Outside the window is not the street or other natural scenery they expected. There was only a pure white light outside the window, which could not reveal any more information except telling them that it was daytime. At this time, a very mature-looking man in a suit stood up. Everyone has probably heard the sound of the game. We are in the same dungeon and we are teammates fighting together. In this case, we might as well get to know each other while it's still dawn, and understand the functions of our respective props. This way we can support each other and get through the hurdles together. Quote. The man in the suit has a simple and honest face, which is very convincing. But no one gave me face. Tisk, I just complimented you a little bit, but you're a lousy insurance seller. A fat man couldn't stand it, so he stood up and said unceremoniously. You don't even want to say your name. If you want to cooperate, then you should set an example and introduce the functions of your own props first. Otherwise, what if you don't have good intentions and have other ideas? Although they are all joining the game for the first time, they all instinctively know that the props in the newcomer gift package given to them by the game are the capital to survive in the future. How could it be exposed so casually? The man in the suit opened his mouth, and after holding it in for a long time, he only said his name was Lu Shuang. After all, he didn't share the ability of his props. I originally thought that what Lu Shuang said about cooperating with each other to clear the level together was reasonable. Several people who were about to tell them about the props they had obtained shut up when they heard this. Yes, why did they need to expose their own props? Even in the real world, you should not share your private information overly enthusiastically with a stranger you meet for the first time, and this is probably the same in a game. Lu Shuang was not polite. HMPH, okay, then everyone can go back to their own rooms and wish themselves well in 5 minutes. Seeing that there was no possibility of an alliance, the man in the suit did not stay outside for long. He took out the key and returned to the 207 room where he woke up. The female students in school uniforms opened their clear and stupid eyes and looked at each other. After listening to everyone talking about props and not, I looked blankly at the skill I got from the novice gift pack double kick, as if I thought of something. I stopped talking. Seeing the white light outside the window getting darker and darker, I quietly slipped into 203. Zuo Chenggen closed the door of 204. Instead of going to a safer corner away from the door, he sat down against the door. The axes and shields in the room have long been at hand, ensuring that they can be grabbed in an instant. Since he had the Eye of Truth skill, when he focused on the axe, he could see a line of comments. Hand axe, a weapon thoughtfully given to new players by the owner of Happy Apartment. You're welcome, please use it as much as you like. Xiao Mu done. At a critical moment, it may save your life. Say it quickly, thank you Xiao Mu done. PS, it is not very reliable. Axes and wooden shields are not props. During the day, Zuo Chenggen tested them openly and secretly. Except for him, no one else can see the annotations of ordinary items. This gave him a lot of first-hand information. For example, this is a happy apartment, but they can't even go downstairs and can only move around on the second floor, so naturally they can't see the whole apartment. It is estimated that the location of this copy only needs one corridor, not an entire apartment. It is also possible that other floors of the apartment belong to the boundaries of other copies. Zuo Chenggen didn't hide in the corner of the room, but stayed behind the door. Anyway, the room was so small that it couldn't even fit a bed, so it would be the same no matter where he hid. If he stayed behind the door, he could also listen to the movements outside in time to obtain information after the so-called hunter came out. At the same time, his eyes were not idle, staring at the barrage in the air, without missing any message. How long until it gets dark? I can't wait any longer. Come on, there's only half a minute left. Hurry up and start killing. Ha 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 ha. I hope Hunter can give me some help. The bloodier the better. I'm also thinking of recording it for collection. After everyone returned to the house, the corridor became quiet. When the 5 minutes were up, the last trace of light outside the window disappeared, and the entire corridor became invisible. Creak. In the silence, any sound is very obvious. Coupled with the closed structure of the corridor, subtle sounds will continue to amplify and amplify. Coming. The hunter is coming. Wow, the placement location is in the direction of room 208, right? The blood is finally starting to show. If I keep stalling, I will go to the live broadcast room of the meat pot factory next door. I just came over there. The meat can factory is really known as the meat grinder in the first level dungeon. I was so tired of looking at it that I quickly came here to eat something light. I love watching heavy-mouthed blood. Thanks for the guide. That's it. The hunter has appeared, the number dropped. 1. Squeak. Squeak. Outside the door, there was the sound of a sharp weapon scratching the floor. Unknown creatures appeared from the wall at the end of room 208, passing through rooms 207, 206 and so on. As if to deliberately scare the prey hiding in the room, it circled in front of each room, but there was no extra movement. There is a peephole on the door of the room, which seems to tempt the curious people in the room to lie down and observe. Worried that his gaze would attract the attention of creatures outside, Zuo Chenggen closed the peephole and chose to understand the situation outside through barrages. After a while, he seemed to hear the sound of breaking the door and screaming. There was a fight mixed in, but the distance was too far and there was no way to tell which room it was. Who is in 201? What an unlucky boy. I didn't pay attention either. I was all looking at the beauties in 203. It is said that the lower world is backward, but it is really easy to produce beauties. Look at that female student, she's so straight before she's even grown up, can she still do it in the future? Then you have to survive. Maybe you will die this round of the game. How can you survive? Back to the front, 201 is that big fat man, tisk tisk, he died miserably. If you say that, I'm interested. What camera number is over there? I'll go take a look. The one whose door was broken into was the resident of 201. The answer came to Zuo Chenggen's mind, but the game didn't prompt for dawn, so he didn't risk going out. In room 207, Lu Shuangzan was guarding behind the door tremblingly. A corner of his suit had already been wrinkled by him. Although he was furious when the purpose of the alliance was exposed, the other party was right, and his thoughts were indeed not pure. Because the props I drew were really useless. Mutton dried, pack. Category. Props white, consumables. Effect. Strength +1 for a short time after eating. Restrictions. None. Description. Poor. Lu Shuang's initial strength is 4, and after eating dried mutton, it becomes 5. After eating it, it is the same as not eating it. And after eating it, he discovered that the so-called short-term strength plus 1 foot short time actually refers to 1 minute. It cannot be superimposed. Is this useless? Even the water he drinks can stay in his stomach for 5 minutes, right? If there weren't 5 pieces of mutton jerky in a pack, he would have broken his guard and started swearing. People are selfish and cannot bear to see others being richer than themselves. After knowing that his props were useless, Lu Shuang could not restrain his thirst for knowledge. He wanted crazily to know if other people's props were the same as his, and it was a pity to throw them away if they were tasteless. I don't have the confidence to fight the enemy, but I have to come into close contact with dangerous creatures. God knows, when Lu Shuang heard the creatures outside passing by his door, his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Fortunately, the hunter didn't stop in front of his door in the end. As for who the unfortunate guy who screamed was, he had no control over. After killing the residents of 201, the predator seemed to be full and had no intention of continuing to choose the next lucky person, so he left through the wall where he came from. It's dawn. The hunters have left. As soon as the sound appeared, everyone who had been waiting in the room, scratching their heads and waiting, opened the door and walked out almost at the same time. Through the blood stains on the corridor, everyone quickly found the door of room 201, which was attacked last night. The wooden door of room 201 has been severely deformed. In the lower middle, a hole of about 30 centimeters was cut by the hunter. The area around the hole was filled with scraps of flesh and splattered blood. The answer is obvious, combined with the deformation of the wooden door and the fat and minced meat squeezed out around the holes. The hunter broke open the door and sneaked into the room. After killing the owner of 201, the owner's body was dragged out through the 30-centimeter wide hole and dragged away. When everyone saw this scene, and was stimulated by the strong smell of blood, they all lost their appetites, and there were sounds of retching from time to time. After everyone finally adapted to the environment, the man with glasses spoke weakly. If I remember correctly, the person who lives in room 201 is a relatively strong man, right? He said it very euphemistically, changing fat into strong. With this reminder, everyone remembered that when everyone gathered in the corridor a few minutes ago, there was indeed a fat man who weighed 300 pounds. He seemed to have a very bad temper. He had been cursing God and cursing games from the moment he came out of the room. The man in the suit named Lu Shuang was severely criticized by the fat man. It's okay if I don't remind you, but when I remind you, everyone is silenced. An adult man weighing 300 pounds, with a general level configuration of proper fat-packed muscles in ancient times. There are also weapons such as axes and shields in the room, as well as props with unknown functions. But such people have not been able to survive in the hands of the hunter, so the hope of survival for others is even slimmer. The student girl tried to warm up the scene. Maybe the owner of house 201 is just puffy and has no muscles. Does it make a difference? Lu Shuang once again put forward his suggestion, so let me say that we should all unite. Yesterday I was not honest enough. Now I am the first to come. My name is Lu Shuang, a clerk in a sales company. The prop I drew is a piece of mutton jerky. After eating it, you can increase your strength by 1 point, but the time is very short, only 10 seconds. Because there is only one piece of dried meat, it can only be used at critical times. Quote. Human beings are like this. They are usually loose and suspicious of each other, but once there is a powerful foreign enemy, they will spontaneously condense into a whole. The power of the hunter has been deeply rooted in the hearts of all players. At this time, faced with the joint invitation from Lu Shuang. Although everyone did not agree immediately, the conflict in their hearts has faded a lot. Lu Shuang, who has been dealing with customers all year round, knows that as long as he adds more effort or someone takes the lead, this can be done. As the initiator of a small team, he can more easily gain the say in the group. Lu Shuang aimed at the student in the crowd who seemed the easiest to manipulate, and was about to strike while the iron was hot, when Zuo Chenggen suddenly interrupted. Instead of imagining how powerful the enemy is, we should think carefully about why there are so many rooms, and the hunter chose room 201. If the owner of house 201 did something special to attract the predator, then next time the night comes, everyone can just avoid it. Quote. I said this because Zuo Chenggen saw the barrage. Those people are talking about the rules of the game. They said that the fat man in room 201 was unlucky and had a 1 in 2 chance of meeting him. The student girl was very positive. Is it because he looked at the peephole? I was squatting in the corner of the room last night and didn't dare to look at the door. The woman who was still wearing an apron refuted her words. Not necessarily, I am in room 208. Last night I lay on the peephole and watched with my own eyes the predator passed by my door. But it did not stop. The man wearing glasses also raised his hand weakly. I'm from 205. I also watched it last night, it shouldn't be because of the cat's eye. Another person speculated, is that because you stayed close to the crack of the door? The hunter smelled it through the crack of the door. Zuo Chenggen. No, I was leaning against the crack of the door last night. Finally, someone suggested that they simply tell in detail what they had done last night, and then eliminate the similarities one by one. Just when everyone was about to proceed in order of house numbers, the man in the suit glared at Zuo Chenggen, who had done something bad, calmly and said. Impatiently, he asked the woman in an apron and the man in glasses, wait a minute, you two said you saw the predator yesterday, what did it look like? The man with glasses and the woman closed their eyes and thought about it for a while. There is no light in the corridor at night, and the only light source is the light in the bedroom that shines through the crack in the door. Seeing in such a dim environment is a big challenge for humans. The woman racked her brains. I only saw a vague silhouette. But what is certain is that the hunter is not tall, humanoid, and only reaches the waist of an adult. That's right. It looks like the monkey pattern on the glass. The pattern on the glass is more abstract than a mosaic, and this piece of information has no value at all. Everyone was slightly disappointed, but fortunately the man with glasses had more detailed information. My probability is average, and I have nothing to hide. It's just a pair of glasses with night vision capabilities. As he said that, the man with glasses pointed to the pair he was wearing. This is the one I'm wearing now. I put it on yesterday during the day. It's amazing. It fits my prescription exactly. Lu Shuang couldn't get used to the mosquito-like tone of the bespectacled man and interrupted him rudely. Silly X. Hurry up and get to the point, it's going to be dark soon. It's unclear whether it's because he really can't get used to it, or because he's jealous that the other person's probability is better than his own. Only then did everyone realize that the light outside the corridor window had begun to dim. It was estimated that in a minute or two, the hunters would start acting again. The man with glasses shivered, and did not dare to retort when he was scolded. He silently increased his speaking speed. The hunter is like a hunchback dwarf. The whole body is covered with hair and the claws are very long and can be dragged to the ground. This is the squeaky last night. The reason for the sound is also that it has no eyes and seems to rely on other senses to hunt. In one sentence, the man with glasses didn't break the sentence at all, he just said it in one breath. After speaking, he took a deep breath, obviously holding it back. After everyone returned to the room to digest this piece of information, the game's prompt sound came on time. The hunter has appeared, the number dropped. 1. Because I got the information that predators have no eyes. Everyone in the room involuntarily slowed down their breathing, for fear that the louder breathing would attract the predators. Some people even began to speculate whether the fat man from 201 who was suspected of having mania was killed last night because he failed to hold the axe properly and let it fall to the ground with a loud noise. If you keep quiet, will you be able to get through it safely? It's a pity that the person is dead and their guess cannot be verified. Squeak. The sound of claws scraping against the floor started to sound again from the 208 side. The hunter dragged his nails that were too long and walked slowly in the corridor with his waist bent. He seemed to be planning to do the same as last night, walking past the door of each room as if teasing prey, and then slowly deciding who to kill. Zuo Chenggen lay in the cat's eye, using the weak light to observe the situation outside. Since looking at the cat's eyes will not cause the hunter to attack, he will naturally choose this method to obtain more detailed information. Those guys in the barrage are either full of pornographic trash, or they are extremists who are afraid of chaos in the world and wish everyone would die. The information that can be contributed is really limited, and reading too much will make your eyes dirty. Squeaky. The sound gradually gets closer. Suddenly, Zuo Chenggen's eyes widened. He actually saw a blood bar. Is this also the ability of the Eye of Truth? The body of the hunter is still hidden in the darkness, but there is an obvious health bar floating above his head, just like the mobs in the game. It's just that this health bar is not very healthy and has been reduced to 48%. Is it hurt? Did the fat guy in room 201 do it last night? In addition, when Zuo Chenggen focused his attention on observation, the Eye of Truth was activated. He discovered that even the predators had notes. Hunter E. Red Hat Witch's Most Proud Alchemy Life series work. If you praise her appropriately in front of her, there will be unexpected surprises. Barrage. Who will be the lucky one tonight? I'm really looking forward to it. I really hope it's a girl from 203. Good-looking girls must be cute even when cut into pieces. Then your wish should come true. Screaming Night is a basic first-level dungeon. The rules have long been broken by veteran players. There are many ways to pass the level. Either follow the force killing style and kill all the hunters to clear the level in advance. Either use the killing rules to avoid. The rules are simple, either from front to back or from back to front. Tonight 202, tomorrow 203, you will soon be able to see what you want to see. Then I'll be relieved. I'll just order takeout and eat and watch at the same time. Kill in order of numbers. What a retarded person. Can a 3-year-old child pass the level even if he enters it? Low-level world. This is indeed a low-level world, and the people in it are really stupid. You should still be smarter than a monkey. After all, there are other pitfalls in the dungeon. Screaming Night also had players wiped out in groups at the beginning. It's not that simple. However, the brains of people in the lower world are indeed somewhat underdeveloped, and many times I get sick of stupidity. +1 for those who suffer from stupidity. There is a dungeon where you can pass the level quickly just by killing your teammates. But they chose the most troublesome one, which made me so angry that pimples appeared on my face. I was so stupid. The barrage was still noisy. Zuo Chenggen looked at their speculations and clenched the axe in his hand. 202 tonight, 203 tomorrow, will it be his day the day after tomorrow? The hunter walked past the door of room 204, where Zuo Chenggen was, about a minute ago. According to its speed, it should have turned back from room 201 by now. On the way back, you will choose a room to break into. Zuo Chenggen took a deep breath and held his breath to listen to the movement outside. Bang! Bang! Ah! Why are you so ugly? The sound of the hunter breaking down the door sounded almost at the same time as the screams of resident 202. Although the scream was a bit broken, Zuo Chenggen could still tell that he was Brother Lezi who said, "Where did you do me?" At the beginning of the game. Originally, Brother Lezi was in good spirits, and he was still in the mood to play jokes to adjust the atmosphere. But after seeing the scene after the hunter killed someone, he was silenced and changed from a happy brother to a silent brother. Even during the review during the day, he unusually did not participate in the discussion. The scream only appeared once, and then there was a burst of fighting at the door of room 202. The hunter was in an injured state and could not deal with the players as neatly as yesterday, giving Brother Lezi the opportunity to resist while simultaneously issuing a cry for help. Along with Brother Lezi's shouts of, "Someone help!" spread in the darkness. There were hurried footsteps in some rooms. It seemed that someone had heard the call for help, and the reflex was to open the door to save people. But the fear of death pulled them away from the door and hid back where they were. It's not you who was recruited, so why take the risk? Seeing the 6 closed doors, Brother Lezi felt a little desperate. He had seen the scene of number 201 during the day and had some guesses about the cause of death of the owner of House No. 201. Although it sounded shocking, he felt that after being attacked by predators, the owner of house number 201 still breathed his last breath and was not completely dead. What led to his final death was the last act of the hunter dragging him out through the narrow hole in the door. In order to prevent myself from being dragged out by hunters when I was half dead, I had to experience the pain of skin and flesh separation before I died. Therefore, when the hunter came to him, Brother Lezi decisively opened the door and moved the battlefield from the narrow room to the wider corridor. He very much suspected that the fat man in 201 last night died of hatred because he was blocked in the room and could not stretch out. Everyone heard Brother Lezi's cry for help. Even because of the special structure of the corridor, even 208, which is the farthest away from 202, could hear it clearly. At this time, Zuo Chenggen opened the door and joined the battle with an axe in hand. Almost in front and back, the student girl living in 203 also walked out holding an axe in her arms. Brother Leslie originally thought about just dying, the wound was so painful, but when he saw two helpers coming over, his spirit was shaken and his desire to survive was rekindled. The hunter is extremely powerful, and with its sharp claws, he is like an executioner in the dark. Brother Leslie panicked when he saw Zuo Chenggen raising his axe in the dim environment and fighting with the hunter. Wait. Brother. Wait a minute. I'll lead him to a place where the light shines at the door of the room. Brother Leslie yelled while twisting and crawling forward, leaving a pool of blood behind him without even having time to care, as if he was frightened. He was afraid that Zuo Chenggen would kill him and the hunter together. Don't worry, I won't chop him crookedly. There is a blood bar in Zuo Chenggen's sight, so even if he can't see clearly, he won't chop the wrong person. At this time, the hunter's sharp claws were deeply embedded in Brother Leslie's abdomen. There were no eyes on his face but a big mouth that occupied his head. This big mouth is not idle either. After fixing itself on the prey with its claws, it can't wait to start eating. Zuo Chenggen didn't hold back and chopped off the hunter's head with his head. PFF'd. The axe hit the hunter smoothly, but was blocked by the hard bone and got stuck halfway in the head. The strength value of 5 points is indeed too small. Ouch. The hunter was in pain, let go of Brother Leslie and attacked Zuo Chenggen. Zuo Chenggen wasn't too worried because he was standing behind the hunter. But the hunter cannot be viewed with common sense at all. The structure of its shoulders can actually be turned over easily. Bang! The sharp nails pierced the wooden shield. Zuo Chenggen blocked the blow and gave up the completely stuck axe, preparing to retreat 2 positions. At this time, the student girl filled the gap and shouted, "Take my move of double kick." Bang bang. 2 magical kicks. Kick the axe stuck on the hunter's head another 7 or 8 centimeters. Now the hunter's head is completely split in 2, but it's still not dead. In Zuo Chenggen's eyes, the hunter's health bar instantly dropped to 10%, and because his head was split in half. This 10% is also declining, 10% minus 9.2% minus 8.5%. Death is only a matter of time. When Zuo Chenggen saw this scene, he secretly said. His motivation for coming out to help was to try his best to cause damage to the hunter so that its health bar would no longer be healthy. In this way, when it is his turn the night after tomorrow, even if no one is available to help, he can survive on his own. Originally, I thought that the hunter's health bar could be reduced to more than 10% and then stop, but with the unexpected addition of a student girl, the original plan was obviously not feasible. Who would have thought that such a harmless little girl could kick away 20% of the hunter's health bar with just 2 feet? Is this the power of gaming skills? At this time, the fighting situation in the corridor was extremely fierce. After the student girl used her skills, her legs became weak due to excessive overdraft, and she couldn't even stand up. Brother Leslie was lying on the ground covered in blood, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Facing the still struggling hunter, both of them had no strength to resist. Zuo Chenggen glanced at the two of them and made a quick calculation in his mind, leaving aside the fact that Brother Leslie was half alive. It seems that the blood-grinding bar he originally planned will not work. Even if he really succeeded in grinding the hunter down to only a layer of blood skin today. The student girl has skills. Tomorrow night she will be able to kill the hunter with low health with just 2 feet. When it is her turn, she will still have to face a powerful hunter enemy. There is no way to hide. There is already a big hole in the door of 201. It is not ruled out that predators will not take out a handful when passing by. On the contrary, if they kill this predator today, tomorrow, when it is the student girl's turn to be attacked in 203, he can join forces with the other party. You don't want to kill the predators who will be at their peak tomorrow, you just want to try your best to grind down the health bar and delay the time, so that when it is your turn the day after tomorrow, the pressure will be much less. Moreover, schoolgirls are likely to take the initiative to help because they have helped each other. In an instant, Zuo Chenggen figured out the key to the matter and quickly adjusted his plan. The hunter still struggles. To prevent the hunter with only a trace of blood from killing his teammates the night after tomorrow, Zuo Chenggen picked up the school girl's axe and chopped it with all his strength. Hit with one hit. The hunter, who originally only had 3% of his health left, lost his last bit of blood to zero after suffering a heavy blow. Ding. Kill, Hunter E-type, to get the prop, tetanus potion by 1 foot. Congratulations on achieving the good start achievement. Conditions achieved. Get the first kill in the novice copy. Obtain free attribute points x3. Tetanus medicine. Category. Props green, consumables. Effect. Applying to the weapon can provide debuffs such as poisoning, slowing down, and confusion. Restrictions. If you use it improperly, you can easily fall victim to it. Description. Hurricane, tornado. Taste the power of my tetanus. A test tube about the size of a finger, containing green medicine, appeared in Zuo Chenggen's backpack. Zuo Chenggen ignored the harvest of the battle for the time being and kicked the hunter's body aside to check Brother Leslie's injuries. As for the student girl, she is worthy of her clear eyes, her face is almost distorted by the pain of cramps, and she is waving her hands. I just have cramps in my calves and thighs. It's not a big problem. Let's go deal with the one who's about to burp. Brother Leslie's condition was not optimistic. There were 3 fountains of blood in his abdomen. A large piece of meat was bitten off on his shoulder by a hunter. You could vaguely see the muscles pulling on the bones. The crisis was over. Without the adrenaline analgesia, Brother Leslie, who could have been dragging his body happily on the ground, immediately collapsed on the spot and could not move. With such an injury, if the bleeding doesn't stop, he won't be able to survive the dungeon. Maybe you won't even see it next night. Zuo Chenggen has no regrets. Anyway, in his vision of the future direction of the game, Brother Leslie does not exist. Brother Leslie tremblingly stretched out his hand towards Zuo Chenggen. I. Zuo Chenggen sighed silently. Is there anything else you can't let go of? Put it all in your last words. Brother Leslie closed his eyes in pain, and his whole body was trembling with emotion. Zuo Chenggen thought he was in pain, thinking that those seriously injured patients would cry and beg for relief in the end. It is estimated that he is the same and wants to end the pain as soon as possible. Want to be relieved as soon as possible. No problem. I will try my best to make you pain-free. Zuo Chenggen picked up the axe and indicated the appropriate starting position. Although it was my first time to kill someone, it was also to help others escape, so I didn't feel guilty when I thought about it. Brother Leslie's eyes widened when he heard this. He didn't know where he got the strength to spit out the blood stuck in his throat. Brother. Don't kill me yet. I can still be saved. Pants pocket. There are my props in my trouser pockets. After saying that, Brother Leslie was so excited that the 3 blood holes in his abdomen that were gurgling and bleeding erupted a little. It's so spectacular. After an accident, Zuo Chenggen put down his axe as if nothing had happened and found the healing props that Brother Leslie mentioned. The moment he touched it, the information about the prop also appeared in his mind. Why Shuang Shuang Big Gummy Candy. Category. Props white, consumables. Effect. Significantly restore health. Restrictions. Children and the elderly please eat under supervision. Description. You must know that the probability of being killed by gummy candy is not 0. When he heard the predator scratching at the door, Brother Leslie knew he couldn't hide. He just tore off a small piece of gummy. If it hadn't been for the mouthful of candy in his mouth, his injuries would have been caused by someone else, and he would have burped long ago. Brother Leslie trembled as he took out the remaining candy and divided it into 2 pieces again. The sweet smell spreads and the medicinal effect is immediate. The 3 blood holes in his stomach finally stopped bleeding, and the exposed bones of his shoulders were also covered with a layer of fleshy membrane. The injury still appears to be serious, but fortunately it has not worsened. Brother Leslie handed the remaining pieces of gummy candy to Zuo Chenggen like a treasure and said, Brother, do you want to take a bite of the orange-flavored gummy candy? After eating it, your whole body will be full of energy. It can be seen that the gummy should have been in the shape of a bear before, but now only one leg is left after being torn off. Zuo Chenggen. No. Me. I want it. The cramps are killing me. The student girl whose facial features were displaced by the pain shouted, I don't mind it. As long as it can relieve pain. I'll eat it all. Show it off in my mouth. Finally, this piece of jelly bean went into the student girl's mouth. After eating, she showed an expression of relief as if she had finally been able to sit on the toilet after 10 hours of suffocation. My legs finally no longer hurt. After taking a breath, Brother Leslie was very grateful to the two people who were willing to come out to rescue him. Brother, eldest sister, my name is Jung Ren. Even if I promise you my life-saving grace, you won't appreciate it. But don't worry, as long as I still have breath, anyone who is useful will definitely come to my place. The student girl suddenly turned into a shy person. No, it doesn't have to be so serious. I'm ashamed to say it. I'm just afraid that no one will help me when the hunter comes looking for me. If everyone works together to deal with the hunter, maybe we can end the dungeon early. Ah, by the way, my name is Li Yikyu. Quote. Zuo Cheng'an heard this and said to himself, it's a pity that he can't end it early. There is more than one hunter. The night is not over yet, but the predator that should be roaming around tonight is lying on the ground, so there is no danger in staying in the corridor. Jung Ren's whole body ached and he groaned softly while lying on the ground. What he didn't know was that there was an eyeball beside him that transmitted the picture to a group of unknown beings. He is lucky, he was able to use a healing item and come back with a life. What a piece of luck, it's not a skill, it's just a consumable prop. It's gone now. It depends on what he will do in the future. Oh, I thought I could see everyone watching indifferently as he died alone and despairingly. It was really boring. If you want to see brothers turning against each other and couples becoming enemies, why don't you watch a copy of 3-1147 Feet Rose Hotel? Never heard of it. Is it a very niche book? Go check it out now. The barrage was talking about some useless content again. Zuo Cheng'an ignored the barrage in the corner of his eyes and looked at the 3 extra free attribute points on the panel. The dungeon space is small, and it's no use having no place to hide as the speed increases. Physical fitness should only be able to deal with being beaten, so it won't help much, but mental strength can't be increased. Finally, these 3 free attributes fall on strength. After adding the points, Zuo Cheng'an's panel becomes Player, Zuo Cheng'an. Level, not on the ladder. Spirit, 97 100ths. Physique, 6. Power, 8. Speed, 7. Props, Tetanus Medicine X1 piece. Skill, Eye of Truth. How much strength can be increased by 3 attributes? Because there was no suitable equipment around, Zuo Cheng'an could not figure out the answer for a while. But the axe and small wooden shield in his hand, weapons that originally felt heavy in the hand, now feel a little light in his hand. It doesn't look like a real person, but it feels like holding a cardboard prop. It seems that if there is a chance, I have to change to a suitable weapon. Not long after Zuo Cheng'an applied the tetanus medicine on the axe, the game's prompt sounded. It's dawn. The hunters have left. The hunter is dead, of course it can't leave. I saw the corpse of the hunter in the corridor with his head split in half and his body in tatters. As the beep sounded, he began to decompose rapidly. In the end, there was nothing left on the ground except Jung Ren's blood. Seeing that the game was still going on, Li Yikyu looked panicked. Why isn't the game over yet? Is it necessary to go through all 7 days before it is over? Click, click, or the sounds of opening the door one after another. The 4 people hiding in the house walked out and were not surprised that the 3 people in the corridor had successfully survived. The soundproofing effect of the room is extremely poor. When the sound of fighting stops at night, they know that the battle is over and the hunter is dead. But it doesn't appear during battle, and it will pop out quickly after the enemy is dead. It is estimated that only a person with a thick skin as thick as his feet can do it. Therefore, several people in the room simply stopped going out to save the embarrassment and wait until dawn. A Christmas Eve gave everyone a shot in the arm, making them realize that hunters are not invincible. As long as everyone works together. Forehead. It's better not to mention it. Lu Shuang looked at 201 with a subtle look on the door, which had a big hole in it and was stained with blood, and 202 with several scratches on the door. He did not block his movements, so everyone noticed his gaze and followed him to observe the 2 rooms attacked by the hunters. Lu Shuang expressed the doubts in everyone's mind. The first night was 201, and yesterday was 202. Will the next hunters be released in this order? 203, 204, and 205. Except for Zuo Cheng'an, the faces of the corresponding house owners who were called by Lu Shuang to their room number didn't look very good. Li Yikyu was so frightened that her beauty turned pale. Her room was 203. Could it be that it was her turn tonight? If she had known this, she wouldn't have gone out to help last night. How about leaving her skills to herself? As for those with room numbers at the lower end, especially 207 and 208, it felt like a big stone fell to the ground, and it felt like standing up and talking without pain in the back. What? It turns out that they just attack in order. It turns out that the rules are that simple. Really, it made them worry for a long time. There are 7 days in the dungeon, which means 6 nights. If one dies every day, number 7 and number 8 can win without doing anything. After most people know this rule, they will also take into account the mentality of the homeowner with the first number who is about to collapse. Even if they are laughing in their hearts, they must always maintain a worried expression on their faces. But compared to the woman in 208, Lu Shuang, the landlord of 207, seems to be less good at managing facial expressions, or maybe he is too lazy to pretend. Accidentally displaying an exaggerated relaxed attitude. The plainly dressed man in room 206 collapsed. He pointed at the man with glasses and angrily yelled at him. What on earth did he mean and what peace of mind did he have? He is only one number away from survival. If his room number is 207, there is no need to worry anymore. Lu Shuang knew he was in the wrong, so he comforted him in a low voice. Just think of it as carrying forward the spirit of, the dead are the most important, in advance. The indifferent expression on Lu Shuang's face once again stimulated the man. When he thought that after he died in the game, his mother, who was in the hospital and needed to pay for the surgery herself, might miss the best time for treatment. The tight string in his head suddenly broke, and he rushed back to room 206 and broke down and screamed. The man with glasses who proposed the rules of the Predator's attack also had a bad look on his face. He was in room 205 and was also on the Predator's attack list. As if Lu Shuang didn't feel everyone's despair, he treated himself as an irrelevant person watching from the sidelines and responded randomly. Hunters can be killed. As long as we unite and deal with them together, everyone will be able to pass the game alive. Just like the 3 of them last night. Li Yikyu suddenly felt as sick as if she had eaten cold skin that had been left out overnight. Brother, are you still talking about cooperation? Why didn't I see your noble feet stepping onto the corridor last night? See, no one appreciates it. Lu Shuang ignored the matter and said, you 23,456 can just stick together on your own. What does it have to do with me? At this time, he had completely relaxed and no longer clung to everyone like he did the previous 2 nights. After hearing this, Li Yikyu silently calculated his current combat strength. Apart from herself, the only ones left were the half-disabled Zheng Ren, Zuo Cheng'an, and the collapsed man. As for the 205 man with glasses, she didn't count them. Because the man with glasses gave her a feeling of being submissive on the surface, as if he could step on anyone, but he would silently hold a grudge and wait for the fatal blow at the critical moment. There are 4 people in total, one is crippled and the other is crazy, and their combat effectiveness is negligible. Although she has the skill double kick, her physical constitution does not reach the minimum requirement of 7 feet for using the skill. Forcible use will cause damage to the legs. Once it will cause cramps and strains, and twice it will be dangerous to the muscles and veins. My legs may become disabled in the future. Zuo Cheng'an thought for a moment facing a row of doors and said uncertainly, in fact, you don't have to fight the hunters. Lu Shuang thought that Zuo Cheng'an knew that it would be his turn soon and was frightened and started talking nonsense. Don't fight the hunter. Do you want to commit suicide in advance? Zuo Cheng'an was too lazy to waste time with him and directed Li Yikyu to move the injured Zheng Ren back to his room number 202. After finishing, Li Yikyu was about to leave, but found Zuo Cheng'an holding her back. Wait a moment, stay with me tonight. Li Yikyu. Ah. She dodged and distanced herself, crossed her arms and looked at Zuo Cheng'an warily. What are you going to do? Even if I am killed tonight. I hit the wall with my head. I will never do what you want. Zuo Cheng'an ignored her for the time being, but watched the barrage in the air calmly. Holy shit. He can actually figure out a way to clear the level without any injuries to everyone on his own. Could it be that he is a genius? What's so difficult about this? I would have thought of it a long time ago. People in the higher world just have to be smarter. That's right, how simple it is. Otherwise, why is Screaming Knight a first-level dungeon? Players often come in groups with guides to earn points. Isn't it because the rules are simple and easy to circumvent? That's right, I've watched dozens of live broadcasts of Screaming Knight dungeons. Those players who came prepared always lived in rooms 2 to 6 at the beginning. Only after it was determined whether the hunters on the first night were to be killed from front to back or from back to front would they avoid those rooms with special numbers. As long as you understand the rules, everyone can clear the level without injury every time. So simple. Isn't it too mentally retarded? It can't kill anyone at all. Hate, there are actually quite a few rules. For example, no more than 2 people can live in a room, no noise can be made in the room, the door must be locked at night, etc. However, this is an old dungeon after all, and the strategies are all packaged together with other dungeons. When it comes to selling, those 3 or 2 rules are too easy to avoid. The copy of Screaming Knight has been brilliant before. Even though it has become a split version now, when it first came out, the land reclamation team died a lot trying to figure out the rules. By the way, I have the resources to make progress. Do you want to watch it? Zuo Chenggen told Li Yikyu his guess. Li Yikyu was so decisive, then let's go to your room quickly. But he still had one last worry, is this really okay? Will it not be erased from the game? There are so many things to erase and not erase. We spent most of last night in the corridor. Aren't you okay now? Oh, Li Yikyu suddenly realized. Okay, I didn't expect you to look cold, but I didn't expect you to be quite nice. Ding, good guy card plus 1 laughing face. No, I am a very standard egoist. Zuo Chenggen took Li Yikyu back to 204. Suddenly he remembered something and returned to 203 to close the door. Click, is the sound of the door locking automatically. Not long after he returned to 204, the game prompt appeared. The hunter has appeared, the number dropped. 1. Creak. Through the peephole, Zuo Chenggen saw an E-class hunter with full health appearing in the corridor. Even though he had deduced from the reaction to the barrage that there was probably no problem in doing so, his muscles were still tense, ready to fight at any time. As for Li Yikyu, he didn't need to remind him. He took the initiative to cover his mouth and huddled in the corner without moving. In the end, the hunter chose to stop at the door of 203 and scratch the door. But 203 is empty inside. Even if the door is completely dismantled, it will not gain anything. After another day, the player who survived the disaster walked out of the room. When they saw Li Yikyu walking out of room 204 unscathed, they all showed expressions of ecstasy. It turns out you can really avoid predators without fighting. It turns out that the dungeon game is so simple. Just hide in the rooms with other numbers. Li Yikyu was infected by everyone's emotions and took the initiative to invite Zuo Chenggen, benefactor. Come to my room to take shelter tonight. Zuo Chenggen glanced at the door of room 203 and refused without thinking, no. Li Chuyu was a little confused, but after seeing the tragic situation on the door of her room, she understood instantly. The door of room 203 has become a piece of wood fragments on the ground, a glorious sacrifice. Zheng Ren, who had already recovered to the point where he could hold on to the wall and walk slowly with the effect of the medicine, suggested, then you come to my room. The door of 202 is intact and not damaged. Okay. Li Yikyu agreed happily, without any trace of yesterday's vigilance. No way. Zuo Chenggen thought of the information he saw in the barrage and refused. He shook the key in his hand, which automatically appeared in his pocket after the copy woke up. It also had a room number on it, which could open the door to the corresponding room. Look, the keychain in our hands only has 2 keys. I guess it means that by default, in addition to ourselves, another person can enter and exit the room freely. Quote. Zheng Ren let out a long, ah, and suddenly realized, that's it. I thought the game was afraid that the player would lose the key, so it specially gave an extra key as a spare. Then he looked at Zuo Chenggen with admiring eyes. Brother. Why are you so smart? You discovered this little clue. Others were dubious. Lu Shuang subconsciously touched his key, really or not. A room can only accommodate 2 people. It's just a guess. Zuo Chenggen said calmly. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Anyway, these rules were tested by previous players with their own lives. Besides, he was actually just looking for answers to find evidence. It's just like the process that after students copy the answers, they just talk about it casually just to show off. Anyway, the result is already correct and the process is not important. It is known that there can be at most 2 people in the room. The next step is to find clues in the game, and the key that appears in all their pockets from the beginning is the clue. Zuo Chenggen did not suppress his voice when he spoke about his analysis, and the other players also heard it. Originally, everyone wanted to stay together and hide in one person's room, but after learning about this restriction, his plan to stay together was aborted. After a pause, Zuo Chenggen continued, and hiding all the time is not an option. Sooner or later, most of the room doors will be destroyed by hunters. The remaining number of us cannot hide in 1 or 2 rooms, and we will eventually encounter the hunter. Quote. Zuo Chenggen told the cruel reality. The surviving residents have subtle eyes and different thoughts. Time passes minute by minute, and the 5 minutes of dawn are about to end. Zuo Chenggen and Zheng Ren stayed in 202, while Li Chuyu was taken away by the woman who lived in 208. Li Chuyu was so moved. Sister, you are so kind. Thank you for taking me in. You are such a good person. Ding, there is a good person card dispensing machine. The woman smiled gently. It doesn't matter, I can feel better if you stay with me. The last trace of white light outside the window disappeared. If nothing unexpected happens tonight, the target of the hunter's attack will be 204, which is the room where Zuo Chenggen is. But Zuo Chenggen was still a little worried, feeling that something was wrong. Such a simple rule will not achieve what was said in the barrage, which is to destroy many players who came to conquer it when it was first opened. Are there any hidden rules that have not been discovered? What night is it tonight? I've made up a lot of copies of Scream Night, and knowing the inside story, I'm so cool again. 204 residents are going to be killed tonight, of course it's the 4th night, what's wrong? He, you'll know when it gets dark. This is the fun, killing people in order, it's so boring. The hunter has appeared, the number of drops, 2. 2 predators were released tonight. Hearing this news, Zuo Chenggen raised his eyebrows slightly, secretly thinking that it was not that simple after all. As for whether the 2 predators will all find 204, or 1 hunter and 1 door. The barrage has already given the answer. Quack. Look at that guy from 205. He wet his pants because he was so scared. Ha 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 ha. Video, record it quickly. I want to show it to my brothers. Hey, I seem to be scared to tears. Within 205 minutes, the man with glasses stared in disbelief at the door that the hunter was knocking on frantically. What's going on? Why were 2 predators released tonight? Isn't it 1 per day? The extreme fear almost overwhelmed him. He knew that he should not sit still and wait for death, but should take up arms and win a chance like Zheng Ren in 202. But his legs seemed to be filled with lead, and he couldn't move at all. At the same time, the people hiding in other rooms also looked bad. Especially Lu Shuang in 207. I thought there would only be 1 hunter in 1 night, and the hunter would only choose 1 room to break into. 207 where you can sit back and relax. But in fact, the copy actually started releasing 2 hunters at once. Tonight is 204 and 205, then tomorrow night it will be 206 and 207. No. Suddenly, Lu Shuang thought of Zuo Chenggen. Not only was he the first to suggest that hunters may follow certain rules when killing, or there may be certain opportunities for killing. It is also speculated that a maximum of 2 people can stay in a room. He must know something. But he didn't announce it. Because he wanted to kill himself. That must be it. Haha. Lu Shuang sneered, since you wanted to mess with me first, then don't blame me as long as I survive. Bang bang bang. Bang bang. In the dark corridor, 2 doors were broken one after another. The door of room 205 failed to hold up at first, and there was a gap at the lower part of the wooden door. Death can best make a person grow. At the critical moment, the man with glasses frantically picked up an axe and slashed at the claws that had reached into the house. Unfortunately, his strength value does not seem to be high, the damage caused to the hunter is limited, and his attack is weak. Even after cutting for a long time, the bones of the hunter's arm were not broken. Hearing the movement inside 205, the hunter who was still working hard in 204 instantly gave up its goal and joined the team that broke through the 205 gate. Two hunters working together. Soon, they successfully dug out a hole that they could fit into. No, no. Don't come over. The man with glasses was blocked in the room, with snot and tears mixed together. As if arousing the fierceness deep in his heart, he slashed the axe in his hand crazily. Lu Shuang counted the time in 207, and when there was only half a minute left before dawn, he quietly opened the door to the room. There were only hunters chewing food and slight moans in the corridor, and soon the faint moans disappeared. Sensing that dawn was approaching, the two hunters abandoned the bodies and left one after another. At this time, Lu Shuang took up his courage and rushed out of the room. He took the glasses off the man's face and quickly put them into his gaming backpack. The hunter was in a hurry to leave and did not attack Lu Shuang. After doing all this, Lu Shuang suppressed his violently beating heart and let out a sigh of relief. It's dawn and the hunters have left. Click. The survivors walked out of their rooms. Although they were prepared for what would happen at night, they were still shocked by the tragedy of 205. The body of the bespectacled man had all its skin and clothes torn off, half of it was left inside the house, and the other half was scattered outside. At a glance, I don't know which parts are missing. Zhuo Chenggen reluctantly found some debris that was probably the head, but there was no trace of glasses on it. He glanced at Lu Shuang, who was the first to appear at the scene, without exposing him. Soon, other people also discovered that the body was missing something, or in other words, it was missing props. Where are his night vision glasses? There's nothing in the house either. Was it eaten by predators? It's also possible that the owner's death was automatically recycled by the game, right? I guess so. His head is not complete, like he has eaten a half-eaten apple, and his glasses must have been eaten with him. Misled by Lu Shuang's words, everyone temporarily believed the story that the props were eaten by hunters. The man in 206 suddenly asked Lu Shuang, if there are still two hunters tonight, it will be the two of us. Do we want to form an alliance tonight? Lu Shuang asked for it. Of course it's no problem. I've already told you about my prop mutton jerky. Can you introduce it? If you don't want to tell others, we can go back to the room to talk. No. Don't bother. My name is Zhao Chengyuan. The prop is a long-handled mirror, which is green in quality and can reveal special existences that are normally invisible to the naked eye. Hiss. After hearing this, everyone gasped in unison. It turned out to be a prop that can be used to detect tricks. Although they don't understand its value yet, it is related to Ah Piao and is of green quality. It should be a rare one in the game. Facing the envy in everyone's eyes, Zhao Chengyuan twitched the corners of his stiff mouth, seeming to be mocking himself. There are no supernatural beings in this dungeon, so what's the use of it? Zhao Chengyuan showed his sincerity and finished the introduction, but Lu Shuang seemed extremely dissatisfied with his props. Mirror has no fighting ability at all, so forming an alliance with him will not help you at all. Then, he turned around with slight disgust and said to the others. What are you waiting for? Don't think you can stay out of it. 2 hunters will appear tonight. 3 will appear tomorrow night. Wait until the hunters destroy the doors to all rooms. No one can escape. It was obvious that he disliked Zhao Chengyuan for being too weak and wanted to forcibly tie more people together. After several alternations of days and nights, the 6 remaining players in the dungeon could barely be called friends of life and death. We are much more familiar with each other than when we first started the game. After listening to the man in the suit, Zheng Ren felt that it made sense. The game allowed them to survive for 7 days, and today they had 2 heads on the 4th day. If the upgrade frequency is every 3 days, by the 7th day, wouldn't there be 3 hunters coming out? Zhuo Chenggen shook his head and retorted, if we hadn't killed that hunter, 3 of them might actually appear on the 7th day. But we have killed 1, and there is a high probability that there are 2 left in the game, which are the 2 that appeared last night. Quote. Zheng Ren is either stupid, or he is sometimes slow to react and fails to come up with ideas. Once someone reminds him a little, he can figure out the key. Is it because of the carved patterns on the windows? Yes, 3 monster patterns correspond to 3 hunters. The level 1 dungeon won't be too difficult. You see, the game throws clues right in the player's face. Upon hearing that there were only 2 hunters left in the game, everyone felt a little relieved. Seeing that the 5 minutes before dawn are approaching again, everyone has not yet discussed a safe way to deal with the predators. Lu Shuang jumped anxiously, knowing that the target of the hunter tonight was him. Of the 8 rooms, the only ones with doors that are intact enough for hiding and not targets for predators to attack are 202 and 208, and they are both occupied. The only way left for him is to fight the predators. So, what good will it do you if I die? Do you want to watch me being killed by monsters? Right now, the best solution is for us to work together. Don't you think so? After Lu Shuang finished speaking, he stared at the woman, waiting for her to give him an explanation. Everyone saw Lu Shuang's exaggerated and extreme changes. Current affairs have nothing to do with you, so hang on high. Once you are involved, you will immediately become more anxious than anyone else. The woman was a little embarrassed by being stared at, and kept rubbing the corner of her apron. Finally, she briefly introduced her abilities like Zhao Chungyuan. My name is He Jinmei. I don't know what the props you are talking about are. If you are referring to the items from the novice gift pack, I only opened a skill book called Basic Archery Skills, which I have already used. After saying that, He Jinmei took out the key from her pocket and accurately hit the monster in the center of the window between the eyebrows. After using it, I found that I have a much better grasp of the muscles on my body. As long as I can throw it anywhere, I can basically hit it wherever I want. He Jinmei's unique dart skills. Zheng Ren looked dumbfounded. This ability is great. I can definitely pull the boss's pants off when he goes to the scenic spots. Although He Jinmei is married, her thoughts seem to be somewhat conservative. When she heard Zheng Ren's joke, her cheeks turned red. Li Yikyu quickly stepped forward to help the woman who was very gentle to her. My name is Li Yikyu, and the skill I use is called double kick. However, if you want to use it normally, your constitution must reach 7 points or above. I only have 5 points, which does not meet the minimum standard, so I can only use it once at most. Quote. With the beginning, others can only follow. Zheng Ren, the prop is Wai Shuang Shuang Big Gummy Candy, which is a kind of food that can recover from injuries, but it's almost gone. Zheng Ren finally read out the name of his shameful prop. Anyway, he is thick-skinned and not afraid of social death. Now only Zuo Chenggen is left, and everyone can't help but focus on him. Zuo Chenggen, the one you opened is also a skill, basic sword skills. As he said that, Zuo Chenggen played with his axe twice. It is really important to learn more skills in daily life, so that you can use them in critical moments. Zheng Ren, showing thumbs up, handsome. If it were me, I would need 6 stitches on my chin. Zheng Ren, that's right. What's your name, that insurance guy? No matter, why isn't your prop a strength increasing mutton? Why don't you give it to brother Zuo or Aunt He? Then we just lie down and hug each other. Thighs, so cool. Lu Shuangji laughed out loud, but did not directly answer whether he could or could not. Of course he couldn't agree, otherwise his lies about the efficacy of mutton jerky would be exposed. But in the end Lu Shuang's goal was achieved. After that, the 5 surviving people made an appointment to deal with the 2 hunters together in the evening, and then returned to their rooms. The daytime in the game is fleeting, and night is coming soon. At the last moment, Lu Shuangdu shouted uncertainly in the room, "Are you sure you will come out tonight?" After getting everyone's affirmative answer, he felt at ease. Quote. The hunter has appeared, the number of drops, 2. In order to prevent both people from being stuck in a narrow room and unable to stretch out, Lu Shuang from 207 and Zhao Chungyuan from 206 stayed in their own rooms respectively. They also made an appointment to wait for the hunter to come out, then call Pai Zi and rush out of the house together. Anyway, there is no way to escape the battle with the hunter, so it doesn't matter if the sound will expose you. The sound of squeaking appeared on time. When the 2 hunters reached the middle of rooms 207 and 206, Lu Shuang and Zhao Chungyuan shouted, 1, 2, 3. They opened the door and rushed out with axes in hand. But when he entered the corridor, Zhao Chungyuan realized that he was the only one who came out. Seeing that food came out of the can on its own initiative, the 2 hunters no longer insisted on breaking down the door, but instead focused on Zhao Chungyuan to attack alone. Zhao Chungyuan was horrified. The anger of betrayal and the fear of the hunter were two completely different emotions that came almost at the same time. He shouted for help. Someone is coming. Someone is coming quickly. The residents in the other rooms had been waiting for a long time, and when they heard the signal, they all opened the doors. Even Jinmei swung her legs and came out to increase her popularity and embolden everyone. She has the accuracy to point where to hit, but lacks the courage to face the enemy. When you see the hunter, your whole body is frightened. How can you dare to throw the axe at the head of the hunter? Zuo Chenggen rushed out and looked around the heads of the two hunters. One's HP is 87.7%, and the other is 72.6%. Barely considered 80% new. It seemed that even though the man with glasses had fought tooth and nail last night, his physical fitness meant that the damage he could do to the predators was limited. At this time, the medicinal effect of the big gummy candy has been fully exerted, and Zheng Ren's injuries are only a little superficial, which does not affect his movements very much. He rushed out with bared teeth and claws. Soon he narrowed his eyes and felt that the number of people was wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, you are not interesting enough to sell insurance. You were the first to propose cooperation, so why did you retreat into your shell at the critical moment? Zheng Ren cursed a few words and quickly joined the output team. The hunters seem to follow the rules of the game and always attack Zhao Chengyuan first. Even if he hides behind other people, the hunter will give up on those closer to him and instead stretch his claws towards him. Seeing this, Zuo Chenggen shouted, "Throw out the key." Since the hunter targets the residents of the corresponding rooms, and the dungeon has received so many players, it is impossible for the hunter to rely on his face to remember them every time. With this kind of intelligence, its classification in the game is no longer an E-class model, but an A or S model. Therefore, the only possible option is for the hunter to use keys to identify the occupants of different rooms. Hearing Zuo Chenggen's words, Zhao Chengyuan took out the two keys from his pocket without thinking, separated them and threw one to Zuo Chenggen. The moment Zuo Chenggen received the key, the priority targets of the two hunters also changed instantly. They were no longer chasing Zhao Chengyuan alone. Instead, the troops were divided into two groups, targeting Zuo Chenggen and Zhao Chengyuan equally. Seeing that the hunter who always moved together with the conjoined twins was finally separated, the others were automatically divided into two teams, each team dealing with one of them, and let the night pass. Li Yikyu ate gummy bears to treat her injuries, and rested for one night and one day. Now I have the energy to use the skill again. At Zuo Chenggen's signal, she kicked the hunter with the lower HP with all her 2 consecutive kicks. The health bar on the hunter's head lived up to expectations, and was reduced by a huge amount, a full 20%. The high damage of the skill made Zuo Chenggen jealous. Even if the value does not reach the skill standard, the damage is so strong. Once it reaches the skill requirement of 7 points, or higher, wouldn't it be more powerful? Of course, Li Yikyu was only handsome for a moment. After 2 kicks, she immediately shriveled up. My legs were shaking harder than after running a physical test. He had to withdraw from the first line and play support with Jinmei on the second line. The current situation is that Zhao Chengyuan and Zheng Ren are dealing with the hunter whose HP is over 80%, assisted by Jinmei. Zuo Chenggen and Li Yikyu dealt with the hunter whose health volume had now reached 51.32%. However, because Li Yikyu is already half disabled, Zuo Chenggen still has to rely more on him. His previous statement that he had learned basic knife skills was not a lie. He had really learned 2 moves from an old man who was exercising in the park. However, when I practiced, I used a prop sword that was softer than noodles, and now I am holding an ordinary firewood axe in my hand. The game continued until now, and Zuo Chenggen gradually found the feel of the weapon. He moved his feet slightly to avoid the claws of the hunter attacking his face. At the same time, the axe in his hand struck vertically, hitting the hunter's wrist. Crack! The axe embedded itself in the bones of the hunter. The situation where the weapon got stuck due to insufficient strength had happened before, so Zuo Chenggen was well prepared this time. He raised the wooden shield in his other hand as a hammer and hit the axe with all his strength. The axe sank suddenly during the knock, and at the same time, the hunter's wrist with sharp nails was broken on the ground, causing a loss of body. The hunter lost another 10% of his life points. But Hunter is truly the witch's most proud alchemy work. It's like it doesn't feel pain. The body showed no reaction and still maintained its attacking posture. Use the other remaining claw to continue attacking Zuo Chengen. Zuo Chengen blocked the attack with a wooden shield in his hand. Catch the blow easily. At this time, the tetanus medicine smeared on the axe seemed to have taken effect. The hunter's movements began to slow down. It's like it's been slowed down several times. Not to mention Zuo Chengen, an 80-year-old man could have done it. And due to physical damage, the blood bar is steadily declining at a rate of a few tenths of a percent. It soon fell below 40%. At this time, the hunter's only remaining claw was stuck in the wooden shield, and the other wrist was empty. Therefore, it could only choose to bite Zuo Chengen with the mouth on its head. Gaba is the sound of teeth resting on a hard object. Li Yikyu did not keep paddling, but saw the right moment and drove her axe into the hunter's mouth. For a while, the situation remained at a stalemate. On the other side, Zheng Ren was playing 3 against 1, and the pressure was much lighter than Zuo Chengen's. He even had the energy to use Zhao Chengyuan's mirror prop as a toothbrush to brush the hunter's teeth. A pile of pried-out teeth clattered to the ground. Zheng Ren was extremely relieved. Everyone was full of fighting spirit, but the hunter suddenly lost his fighting spirit, and at the same time, there was a faint light outside the window. It's dawn. The hunters have left. Under Zuo Chengen's deliberate delay and release, although the two hunters' health was weakened to only 20%, they still maintained their combat power. He picked up the axe, walked towards door 207 where Lu Shuang was hiding with a gloomy expression, and aimed the axe at the door lock. Zhao Chengyuan instantly understood Zuo Chengen's thoughts and joined the team that scored the goal. Inside the house, Lu Shuang shouted, "Hey, hey, hey! What are you going to do?" Zhao Chengyuan didn't say anything, but just chopped harder and harder with his hands. In the end, a door that was not very strong turned into a pile of rotten wood. Lu Shuang hid in a corner of the room in horror, holding the dried mutton in his hands, planning to fight if something went wrong. What's going on? If you have something to say it well. If you have something to say it well. It is human nature to avoid danger and survive. Zhao Chengyuan raised his axe and pointed it at Lu Shuang's face, saying without mercy, "Apologize. This, don't worry, I will definitely, tonight." Zhao Chengyuan didn't bother to say anything more to him, so he punched him. Zhao Chengyuan is a typical honest person. As long as he doesn't touch the bottom line, he will always smile no matter how he bullies him. Once you get angry, haha, it's not far from killing someone. With anger, the damage of this punch cannot be underestimated. Lu Shuang covered his face and his body was slammed against the wall and bounced back due to the reaction force. Immediately afterwards, Zhao Chengyuan raised his hand again, as if he wanted to fight again. Lu Shuang reflexively covered his face and shouted, "It's wrong, wrong. I'm sorry for you. I'm just a weakling. Please let me go." At the end, there was even crying. Zhao Chengyuan didn't know whether he was soft-hearted or something, but the second punch did not fall. Lu Shuang was overjoyed. He was indeed a country bumpkin who had no experience and was easily fooled. He just gave in and dismissed him with a few nice words. When he was working as a salesperson, he liked this kind of people the most. He could coax them to place an order with just a few words, and he didn't have to worry about getting into trouble afterwards. Anyway, even if they suffer a hidden loss, they will swallow it themselves. But Zhao Chengyuan didn't want to let him go at all, but instead beat him and arrested him. He grabbed Lu Shuang's collar and dragged him to room 208. That's the room that will be targeted by hunters tonight. But the room was locked and they couldn't get in. Jinmei didn't dare to move, but Li Yikyu threw the key to 208 to Zhao Chengyuan. I saw Zhao Chengyuan opening the door with the key, and throwing Lu Shuang into 208 like he was carrying a dead chicken. The line of sight is blocked and the situation inside the house cannot be seen. But soon there was a soft sound of bang and click from inside. Immediately afterwards, Lu Shuang screamed like a needle was inserted between his nails. Leg. My leg. His screams were quickly interrupted by Zhao Chengyuan. If you take a step forward, I will break your other leg. After doing all this, Zhao Chengyuan threw the key to 208 at him, as if he suddenly realized what he had just done. The aura all over his body softened instantly, as if he had returned to the honest person he had been before. After handing the keys to his room to Li Yikyu and He Jinmei, and whispering, "Sorry," Zhao Chungyuan chose a relatively intact room and hid in it. "Anyway, we still have to fight the hunter tonight, no matter where he is." It was rare that no one gathered in the corridor during the day today. Everyone went back to their rooms to regain their strength as soon as possible. Tonight is the last night, everyone has their own thoughts. Some people want to just wait for the dungeon game time to clear, and just go crazy once. Some people want to fight all the time, just kill all the monsters and then pass the level. Zuo Chenggen chose the latter. Since you can explode items by killing enemy monsters, you can definitely make money by killing a few more. Seeing that everyone was gone, Lu Shuang hugged his obviously crooked calf and his whole body was shaking with pain, but he just didn't dare to shout out. He frantically yelled at the others and got angry, and then he was distracted and thinking about what to do tonight. Lu Shuang was thinking, in order, the one who should be attacked today should be 208. But he is not a resident of 208. Logically speaking, the hunter should not be interested in him. So as long as he hides in another room, even if the door is broken, he should be safe. Thinking of this, Lu Shuang listened to the movement in the corridor for a while through the door. After making sure that no one was there, he quietly opened the door and crawled into his 207 with difficulty dragging his injured leg. The door of 207 has long been smashed open by Zuo Chenggen and Zhao Chungyuan. It can only serve as a psychological comfort. It is impossible to expect it to provide protection. It wasn't that Lu Shuang didn't want to go to a room farther away, but that his leg injury prevented him from moving normally. He had to leave the distance for the nearer and leave 208, a place of right and wrong. Today should be the last night of the game. As long as you survive, you can pass the level. The light in the corridor dimmed. The hunter has appeared. Number of drops, 2. Despite what you can't tell on the surface, the two remaining predators are actually on the verge of reaching their limit. Therefore, they have no intention of walking around outside all the rooms to intimidate them. The two predators came to door 208 as if they had completed their mission, and pretended to scratch it twice. In fact, they have long sensed that tonight's target is next door, and as long as they go there, they can easily get the food into their stomachs. But according to the rules of the game, they can't go foraging yet. The door with the target serial number must be broken open, or the prey must take the initiative to walk into the corridor. Lu Shuang, who is in 207 next door, heard the scratching outside the door of 208 and secretly laughed that they were indeed brainless NPCs who only knew how to act according to dead rules. The last worry in his heart was gone. He shook the door key of 208 in his hand, changed into a comfortable posture and waited for the game to be completed. But in fact, if Lu Shuang participated in last night's melee, even if he walked out of the room and witnessed the whole process, there won't be any such ridiculous thoughts today. The performance of hunters in battle is by no means an ordinary NPC that can only follow the game program. Without any obstruction, the two hunters worked together to break open gate 208 in a very short period of time. Neither of them glanced inside, and walked straight towards the room where Resident 208 feet was hiding. Lu Shuang found that the sound of scratching at the door next door had stopped, and 208 seemed to have been lost. He was glad that he had made the decision to move during the day, otherwise he would have been torn apart by the hunters who rushed into the room. But, it seems too quiet outside. Suddenly, Lu Shuang seemed to smell a fishy smell, coming from his head. He looked up to see the source of the smell, and saw two predators crowding the gap made by an axe in the door, gesturing at his neck with their slender claws, as if they were planning to claw down. Ah! This was the first time Lu Shuang saw the front face of the hunter. Last time, he could barely see the back of the hunter just before dawn. Now suddenly a close-up came, and he was instantly frightened. While walking into the room, he fumbled for the axe on the ground to chop. During this period, the wooden door was accidentally damaged several times, causing the gap to widen again. It was already enough for the hunter to lean in half his body. Lu Shuang, who discovered this, was stimulated again, and he chopped with the axe in his hand without any order. Go to hell. Go to hell. Don't come here. Even so, his reason has not completely disappeared. Knowing that everyone else was hiding in the room watching the fun, he couldn't care less and shouted for help shamelessly. Whoever comes is welcome. Brothers and sisters. Father and mother. Help me, please come and save me. At this moment, Lu Shuang finally realized Zheng Ren's despair when he was fighting alone without support, and Zhao Chengyuan's anger when he was let go. No, the despair he experienced was greater. After all, he had to deal with two predators alone. PFF'd. A predator's claws scratched Lu Shuang's thigh, and he scratched the expensive-looking haute couture suit into thin strips. Of course, what became the strips of meat were the muscles in his legs. Accompanying the prey's screams and twitching due to pain, the hunter ate with relish and slowly tasted tonight's spoils. At the moment of life and death, Lu Shuang's thinking was clearer than ever before. He ate a piece of mutton jerky to increase his strength to resist. He used his weapon to block the predator's biting mouth, and at the same time shouted out of the corridor. Brother Zhao. Your mother needs money for surgery, right? I have money. As long as you help me, I will give you 500,000 when we get out. It doesn't matter if it doesn't cost 1.5 million. I also have a house. Add it all up. Lu Shuang's words touched Zhao Chengyuan's heart. The money he withdrew from the bank was actually far from enough to cover his mother's surgery fees. His heart was moved and he wanted to open the door and join the fight. But when he put his hand on the door handle, Zhuo Chenggen's voice came slowly. The people who entered the world survival game are probably the ones who disappeared in reality. It seems that I haven't heard of anyone who can come back, right? On the contrary, this game is so magical, you may be able to get items that can cure all diseases in the future, and you may even be able to bring the dead back to life. The most intuitive example is the gummy candy that can even recover from injuries that should be admitted to the ICU. Quote. He had a deliberately long tone, which sounded wilted and wilted. But a few words helped Zhao Chengyuan clarify the facts. I definitely won't be able to go back in a short time, but if I work hard in the game and accumulate healing items, I might actually encounter the opportunity to go back in the future and return to the real world to save my mother. Zhao Chengyuan's fevered mind had cooled down. He thought carefully about Zhuo Chenggen's suggestion and found that it was indeed true. Comparing human medical care in the real world with games. No. There is no comparison at all. Even if he gets the money, his mother's illness may not be cured, and she will eventually die from the pain. On the contrary, if he can find items in the game that can cure cancer and find another chance to go back, his mother will be completely cured. Be quick. You must move quickly. Zhao Chengyuan closed his eyes, and when he pulled away, the weakness inside had disappeared. When Lu Shuang heard Zhuo Chenggen's voice, veins popped up on Lu Shuang's forehead instantly. Vicious curses came one after another. But soon the corridor fell silent again, leaving only the sounds of chewing bones and tearing limbs. Just like Lu Shuang didn't show up to join the battle last night, no one went to save Lu Shuang tonight. Seeing that the time bomb of the future has been eliminated with the help of hunters. Zhuo Chenggen, who had been waiting for a long time, walked out of the room, holding an axe and slashing at the two hunters whose health bars had changed to 28.7% and 30.22. Seeing the almost unchanged health bars on the heads of the two hunters, Zhuo Chenggen kicked Lu Shuang's body with disdain. Are there any props that increase strength attributes? It's not as big a contribution as other people's glasses guy. The two predators obviously didn't forget the man who made them suffer a big loss last night. They stopped eating and stared at Zhuo Chenggen vigilantly. When Zheng Ren saw Zhuo Chenggen taking the initiative to walk out of the room, he looked confused. Brother Zhuo, isn't tonight the last night? After the hunters finish eating the corpses, it will probably be dawn. Isn't it a good idea to wait until the customs clearance? Zhuo Chenggen answered him with actions. Zhuo Chenggen was seen dodging the hunter's attack, and in an instant he came to Lu Shuang's body and picked up a bag of dried mutton and a pair of glasses that suddenly exploded. I didn't mind the blood stains on the two props, so I put on my glasses, took out a piece of dried mutton and ate it. Sensing the emerging power, Zhuo Chenggen slashed at the hunter's neck with precision. Originally relying on the blood bar to locate the location, Zhuo Chenggen could only barely determine the location of the hunter. It's just that when the axe goes down, it's not clear whether it hits the shoulder, the arm, or the head. It's easy to get stuck by the bones. But after putting on this pair of semi-enclosed black-rimmed glasses, his vision instantly became clearer, and the appearance of the hunter was as clear as day. If you don't attack the vital point now, what are you waiting for? However, the blade of the axe was too short, and the blow did not successfully decapitate him. It only cut the soft part at the front of the neck. Fortunately, it still wiped out 5% of the hunter's health bar. The reduced health bar gave Zuo Chenggen the motivation to raise his axe and continue outputting. He was not idle before, but used potion in the room to re-enchant the axe blade. The amount of potion was originally not much, and now only the last third is left. Fortunately, the copy is about to end. Others also rushed out to help. They couldn't see the hunter's health bar. In addition, the hunter seems to have no pain, and no matter how serious the injury is, it will not affect the attack power and speed. This led them to believe that the hunters were still in their heyday and that they had no hope of victory, so they focused on delaying their attacks. It was only after the effects of the potion took effect and the hunter's reaction became sluggish that he saw a glimmer of hope of victory. The last knife hit a hunter on the chest, and Zuo Chenggen successfully killed one. Defeat. Hunter EX1. The game's prompt sounded in Zuo Chenggen's head, but there was no prompt to drop any props. Were there no props revealed this time? Zuo Chenggen was mentally prepared, so he was not disappointed. He had exploded an item before, which was probably the first kill in the dungeon. At this time, the health bar of the other hunter that Zheng Ren, Li Yikyu and others dealt with also bottomed out. Zheng Ren, who had taken the final blow, was stunned for a moment. Zuo Chenggen was quite familiar with his temperament and was not a person who could hide things. Since he was just stunned for a moment without a look of surprise, that means Zheng Ren heard the game prompt, but also did not reveal any props. The samples are too small, and it is still not possible to determine the explosion rate of the props in the dungeon. All three hunters died. According to the barrage, they could clear the level early without waiting for dawn. Just when he thought of this, Zuo Chenggen's eyes darkened. The next moment the body appeared on a bustling street. Strangely dressed people were walking around, but no one seemed to notice me. He could only see the mouths of these people opening and closing, as if they were talking, but he could not hear any sounds. Moreover, there are no eyeball-shaped cameras on this street, and the barrage in the line of sight seems to be blocked. It seems that the audience cannot follow here and see the scene here. Ding! Congratulations to the player for passing the novice assessment copy. The rewards are being settled. Comprehensive evaluation. S. Free attribute points obtained. 10. The first level copy is capped at 5, and the S level rating reward is doubled. Points earned. 200. The first level copy is capped at 100, and the S level rating reward is doubled. It has been detected that the player's body is damaged. Do you want to spend 25 points to recover? Click to expand details. Weather. See the details of the game later. Zuo Chenggen knew that Yushiji's injuries were only a few scratches on his body that occurred accidentally while fighting hunters. There are also the scars left by the surgery on his body, the slight dislocation of the bones after healing, and the hidden wounds accumulated in the veins, etc. There are even some cancer cells. Zuo Chenggen felt scared for a while. Among the repair projects provided by the game, part of him knew there was a problem, and part of him didn't know that cancer cells were one of them. If he hadn't been pulled into the game, he would never have thought that he was actually in the early stages of lung cancer. Select the Confirm button, and the points balance is reduced to 175. Zuo Chenggen felt his body light up, as if all the garbage in his body had been swept away at once, and a lot of burdens had been lifted off him in an instant. When the warm feeling in the body disappeared, even the physique on the panel increased by 1 point. It seems that the harmful substances left behind by his years of eating technology and working hard have also been swept out. Looking at the 10 free attribute points given to him after the settlement, Zuo Chenggen did not hesitate and added them all to strength first. I found that after adding 10 points of strength, I couldn't add more, so I added the extra points to physique and speed. Now his panel properties are: Player, Zuo Chenggen. Level, not on the ladder. Spirit, 74 100ths. Physique, 10. Power, 10. Speed, 10. Items, Tetanus medicine X1 31%, night vision glasses, mutton jerky 2 sticks. Skill. Eye of Truth. Originally, Zuo Chenggen's strength was only 5 points. In the dungeon, he obtained 3 free attribute points through achievements. Finally, all of them were added to his strength, making it 8 points. Of the 10 free attribute points obtained after the copy is settled, 2 of them are added to strength to maximize the value. The remaining 8 points knocked down both physical fitness and speed by 10, but there were still 2 points left that could not be used. When you click on the plus after the value, the game will remind you to go to the ladder tower to improve your level, and then you can break through your physical limits and add points. Breaking through the physical limits. Isn't it just an advancement in the game? You have to advance before you can upgrade normally. This routine is too simple. At this time, Zuo Chenggen felt more and more that the 25 points just spent were worth it. If it hadn't been for clearing up the hidden injuries on his body with points and increasing his physique by 1 point, he wouldn't be able to save 2 free attribute points now. It was just the changes in mental values that concerned him. Before the dungeon started, his energy level was still 97, but after a dungeon it dropped to 74. What exactly does this value affect? Without time to think about it, Zuo Chenggen found that his ears could start to hear some sounds on the street. For example, the person setting up a stall next to him was negotiating with customers on price. A trumpet-shaped prop was bargained down from 200 points to 161 points. Now the passenger is continuing to fight the vendor for a fraction of 1 point. Zuo Chenggen's sudden appearance on the street was counterintuitive and did not attract onlookers. The most people passing by would say, "Here comes another new guy," and then go about their business. There were prying eyes coming from a few corners, but they were not malicious. Therefore, Zuo Chenggen ignored those glances and concentrated on observing the surrounding environment. The surrounding environment is a normal human city environment, but the pure white sky and the fact that there is no light source can clearly see things from all corners. Everyone is telling them that this is not the real world, they are still in the game. Occasionally, there will be new people like myself around, suddenly appearing on the street. The place he was at now seemed to be the entrance to a market, filled with vendors setting up stalls, occupying an entire square. Some vendors seemed not to want to see people, so they covered themselves with black cloth. Zuo Chenggen took a brief stroll around the entrance and checked the prices. I found that the 175 points in his pocket were either too much or too little. The main thing is to see what he wants to buy. If he buys ordinary food, then 175 points can keep him eating for more than 2 months, but if he buys props, an ordinary white quality prop can cost him a lot of money. At this time, the prying eyes hidden in the dark finally came forward and said hello to Zuo Chenggen. I've been watching you for a long time. You suddenly appeared on the street. You must be new here, right? Do you need guide service? It only costs 5 points. It's super cheap. As soon as the woman who looked quite shrewd walked up to Zuo Chenggen, she grabbed Zuo Chenggen's wrist and made a passionate sales pitch. As if afraid that the stubble would run away. Zuo Chenggen thought about the prices he just saw. 5 points is enough for 10 pounds of rice. Based on an adult's consumption of 1 kilogram of rice in 3 days, it is more than enough for a month. He doesn't object to finding a guide to help him quickly understand the situation in the game, but the price is definitely expensive. And he has no habit of being taken advantage of. Besides, what can someone introduce for the purpose of deceiving newcomers? Perhaps key information is deliberately concealed. Let the newcomers suffer a hidden loss. But the woman still clung to him and hinted that there would be some additional special services after the guide work was over, and she seemed to be refusing to let him go without spending money. Zuo Chenggen calmly grabbed the woman's wrist, and the strength in his hand gradually increased. With 10 points of full strength, she let out a cry of pain and quickly let go. She looked at Zuo Chenggen with fear and a hint of unnoticeable envy, knowing that she had made trouble. She didn't dare to think that Zuo Chenggen's rating was S. But I guess he is in good physical condition and has a good physical foundation. Such conditions mean that this newcomer is likely to get a very high score in the dungeon. The point reward will definitely be more than others. The corresponding action should be more generous. But the pain in her wrist gradually worsened, and the woman was worried that if she didn't give up, her wrist would be pinched off. Brother. I was wrong. If you don't need it, you don't need it. Let me go. Only then did Zuo Chenggen let go of his hand and let her go free. After this experience and seeing the woman's fate, many people who had the idea of cheating a newbie did not dare to move forward. Zuo Chenggen, who had gained some peace and quiet, observed on his own that there seemed to be quite a few people here who made a living by being guides for others. Almost as soon as a figure appeared from the air, several lines of sight locked on it, changing different people according to different targets. If a hot-blooded young man appears, then the woman just now should go. If it is a girl, replace it with a disabled person who is more likely to arouse sympathy. Obviously points can heal physical injuries, and it takes 2 days to make a comeback, but you still have to maintain this sympathetic appearance and even create an industry. Can you imagine the huge profits? Seeing some newcomers being stunned for a moment, Zuo Chenggen didn't have the spirit to help others and stepped forward to remind them. However, due to the departure of organized fraudsters, those who were driven aside and those who were serious about making a living from this had the opportunity to step forward. A little boy who looked to be only 8 or 9 years old stood up with his head tilted up. He grabbed Zuo Chenggen's clothes without any offense and didn't let go. Instead, he stood politely half a meter away and said in an unhurried voice, "Sir, do you need guide service? Just one point can show you the main functional areas of Security Zone 7. Until now, Zuo Chenggen was finally able to get some useful clues. For example, this is called Safe Zone No. 7 feet. If there is number 7, then there will be no 1234. They release a little information at the beginning, which is much more generous than the fraud gangs, who only ask you to spend money but keep the information tightly covered. And the asking price is cheap too. In the end, Zuo Chenggen chose the little boy to take him around. After talking, the little boy's name was Yula, but his voice was high-pitched and didn't sound like a little boy. What surprised Zuo Chenggen was his life experience. Yula was born and raised in games, and his parents are both gamers. And there are many children like Yula in Safety Zone No. 7. Zuo Chenggen counted the time and found that the large-scale disappearance in the real world happened 2 weeks ago. This time is obviously not enough for humans to conceive and give birth to a child in 10 months, and then raise the child to such a big size. Either the game has existed for more than 10 years, or time flows faster in the game than in reality. Yula was born in the game and grew up in the game. Sometimes he is curious about why some adults still want to leave even though there is everything here. Brother, are you from the real world? What is there in the real world? Zuo Chenggen thought for a while, and finally found an explanation that people in the game care about most. The real world is similar here, but people do non-life-threatening jobs to get the currency to buy food. So that's it. Yula made a look of realization. The only currency in the game is points. Apart from transfers between players, the only way to obtain points is to download a copy. As for the dungeon, even if you have a super detailed strategy in hand, if you are not strong enough, you will easily die. But this made Zuo Chenggen alert. Didn't the newcomers you brought before tell you? People who work as guides often come into contact with new people, so they should not be ignorant of this knowledge. Are you pretending? Or do you really not know? Yula shook his head. I just celebrated my 10th birthday yesterday and was kicked out of the orphanage by the game. You are my first guest. In the game, children under 10 years old and pregnant women do not need a copy of the strategy guide. They live together in orphanages, with no freedom and no worries about food and drink. Hey, we've arrived at the dungeon hall. Yula and Zuo Chenggen stopped in front of an egg-shaped building in the center of the safe zone. At the same time, Zuo Chenggen said, all players over 10 years old in the safe zone must download the dungeon once a week. If they don't want to go, they must hand in 100 points to offset it. Yula took Zuo Chenggen into this huge egg-shaped building. Be careful not to step into the aperture on the ground. Otherwise, the game will default that you want to participate in the dungeon. If you enter, you will not be able to get out. The dungeon hall is a bit like a train station. However, each entrance has turned into a large screen, and each screen corresponds to a copy. The name and level of the dungeon are marked on the screen, as well as the number of people required to download the dungeon, and a promotional video for the dungeon is played in a loop to facilitate player selection. For example, the screen closest to Zuo Chengen. The picture above is of a luxurious sea cruise ship in the middle of the sea. The composition of the sea, ship, and sunset is just right, giving people a sense of tranquility and tranquility. The looping pictures and videos are also a good side. It's either a luxurious aristocratic ball, or a high-end bedroom with a sea view, a private movie room, a bar, and even a golf course. Next to it is written the name of the dungeon, 3-1588 Nowhere to Escape. It is a large dungeon that requires 100 people to open. 3 means that it is a level 3 dungeon, 1588 is the number of the dungeon, and the name and picture are clues given to the player by the game. Players can use this to guess whether the copy is a survival copy or a mission copy. The former only needs to ensure survival, while the latter must complete the tasks specified by the game. Eula discovered that Zuo Chengen was interested in the copy of Nowhere to Escape, and quickly reminded. Brother, don't be fooled by the promotional video. This level 3 book was just released recently, and no one has been able to complete it yet. So there is not even a complete guide. Now everyone is waiting for the big guild to open up Wasteland, and they are buying strategies later. It's not too late to wait until the guide comes out. And it is not recommended for newcomers to go to a level higher than their own before they have climbed the ladder. If they don't have enough points, they may not even be able to break the skin of the monster inside. Quote. Zuo Chengen nodded. He was not fooled by the beauty shown in the game. The sea, the cruise ship, the copy name, Nowhere to Escape. The combination of the 3 together shows that this is not a simple copy as it seems on the surface. When Eula introduced the details of other dungeon halls to Zuo Chengen, there were bursts of exclamations from the door. Why is the Wave Chaser Guild here? Oh no. It's Xiaoyu Guild. Are they also interested in this 3rd level guild? Ah. Who? Xiaoyu. Are there all beauties inside? It's a beautiful idea, how can such a good thing happen? Because of the strict selection standards of this large guild, the male-to-female ratio is even worse than that of most small guilds. I heard that the player leading the team this time has already reached the 4th ladder, right? They look different from ordinary people. Why do people from these 2 guilds get together? Isn't it possible to cooperate? The 2 teams that came in from the door were quite large. They were all players at the top of the 2nd ladder or the 3rd ladder. There were at least 100 people in them. After entering the dungeon hall, they had a clear goal and walked towards the aperture corresponding to the Nowhere to Escape in the 3rd level dungeon. As more and more people enter the aperture, the number on the aperture gradually changes from 0-100 feet to 35-100s. When everyone in the 2 guilds entered the aperture, the number of people finally reached 100-100s. The moment the number of people reached the target, all 100 people inside disappeared and seemed to have been transported into the dungeon. The screen that was originally showing a picture of the 3rd level book, Nowhere to Escape, turned into 20873 Blue Hat Mother-in-Law Circus. The number of people required for this course is smaller, only 20 people can start. Players who were watching the excitement nearby discovered that the next one to be spawned was an old copy with a small serial number that had been open for a long time, and it could also produce props. Everyone's minds became active, and some people were openly selling dungeon guides. B-level evaluation. Collect them all. The strategy to get the hidden rewards of the Blue Hat Mother-in-Law. Produced by Xiaoyu. Trustworthy. How to start the side mission. Steal the Blue Hat prop without taking any damage. Take a look, take a look. Follow my guide, and I'm sure you'll come out with all your tail. Different guide versions have different prices. Soon, 20 people grabbed their favorite strategies and stood in the circle of light. After their figures disappeared, everyone took a look at the next dungeon that was spawned. Although it was still level 2, its serial number was very large. Although it has been successfully conquered by the Grand Guild, the guide has not yet leaked out, so very few people have entered. During this period, Eula was not idle either. He was very worthy of the 1 point paid by Zuo Chengen. Seize the opportunity to expand knowledge points for Zuo Chengen, Xiaoyu, Zulong, and 1,000 hunters, were all famous guilds in District 7, and they have mastered thousands of dungeon strategies. If you can become a member of their guild, not only will it be safer to have an old person guide you in the next game, but you will also be able to enjoy various benefits of the dungeon guide. That's more than 1,000 strategies. According to the frequency of stepping on the death line once a week, there will be no need to take risks in the wilderness for 20 years. Why do the big guilds in this game feel a bit like big companies in the real world? Zuo Chenggen didn't even think about it. The benefits are great, but it's hard to get in, right? Eula thought for a moment and nodded seriously, his face turned serious. Difficult, very difficult. The minimum requirement for experienced players of Arya and 1,000 Hunters is to reach the first level. This is just a chance to enter, and there is a high probability that they will be kicked down. They basically don't accept newcomers, but if it's the first monster in the rookie period that can reach A-level evaluation, they will definitely welcome it with both hands. If we have to make a comparison, the Zulong Guild is relatively easy to get into, at least it recruits new people frequently, but Eula gently tugged at the corner of Zuo Chenggen's clothes and motioned to come over and listen. But I heard that people in Zulong sometimes deliberately use new people to test the killing rules of the dungeon. Sometimes when a copy passes, the old people are unscathed, but all the new people are dead. Zuo Chenggen noted this down. Although he has no idea of joining the guild yet, it does not prevent him from learning about it first. What about the small guilds? There can't be only these 3 big guilds in District 7, right? It's easy for small guilds. They were recruiting new people at the entrance of the market just now. Show your board to recruiters to see if you can get in. Some guilds only require individuals, while others require attributes such as strength and speed to reach a certain level. The requirements are all different. Quote. Zuo Chenggen nodded and noted this. It is enough to simply understand this information. It is absolutely impossible to show the panel to others. Next, Eula took him to see the entertainment center, arena, ladder tower in the safe zone, and the last stop was the sales center. Huh. Sales center. Zuo Chenggen, who had just come from the ladder tower, was stunned. Can he still engage in real estate development in the game? Eula, of course, the game is the biggest developer. After all players have to live in houses. Once you have a house, you can choose to teleport directly to your home or to the street when you come out of the dungeon. If you are seriously injured, you can go home and recover slowly. At the same time, privacy can also be improved a lot, at least you don't have to change clothes and shower on the street. Quote. Zuo Chenggen checked the price. A hotel-style standard single apartment requires 20,000 points to buy, and 30 points per week to rent. What if I can't pay the rent? Yu Leshu pointed at the park opposite and the bridge next to it. You can sleep in the park, or you can go under the bridge, but because the bridge can protect you from wind and rain, it's a little troublesome to get a place. In the direction Yule pointed, you could see a large number of players betting placed there. One betting is next to another, just like a Datong store, with no privacy at all. When he separated from Eula, Zuo Chenggen paid him an extra 4 points. As a reward for expanding a lot of information to him, the most important thing was that the part about the ladder tower that he cared about most was explained very clearly. Then he decisively spent 30 points to rent a cheap room for himself. The moment the panel was bound to the room, I felt a sense of weightlessness, and when I opened my eyes again, I was in a room of more than 40 square meters. I don't know if the room is in a different space. In short, if you open the door, you will find the entrance square of the dungeon hall. If you open the window, you can see the whole view of Security Zone No. 7. The transportation is convenient, the scenery is good, there are no disadvantages at all. After walking out of the room door, the next moment Zuo Chenggen's figure appeared at the door of the dungeon hall. This is the most central location in the entire No. 7 security zone. It is very convenient to go anywhere from here. After identifying the direction, Zuo Chenggen walked towards the ladder tower. Climbing the ladder is what the players themselves call it. The official name of the game is the ladder tower, where you can upgrade your level. Because players climbing the tower layer by layer to improve their level is very much like climbing a ladder, and combined with the name, it becomes a ladder to heaven. In the information on the personal panel, Zuo Chenggen's level is not on the ladder. Therefore, his attribute points cannot continue to rise after reaching 10. If he wants to go further, he must climb to the first floor of the ladder tower. How to climb the ladder is very simple, just go through an unopened copy of the corresponding level. These dungeons have not yet entered the dungeon lobby, so naturally there are no corresponding strategies, which is a great test of the player's true abilities. Of course, if you can find a high-level boss who is willing to lead you to push the dungeon. The situation is of course another matter. But there are still only a few people who have this kind of connections. There are a total population of 100,000 in safe zone number 7, and players who have not climbed the ladder account for more than 20,000. This is why there are so many players who have not climbed the ladder. If you don't go up the ladder, you can still survive in the game by relying on the guide, but if you go up the ladder, you might really have to deal with it. The strategy seems to have allowed most players to survive and improve the dungeon clearance rate. In fact, it stifles the player's ability to be independent and will lead to a dependence mentality over time. Actually, this is pretty good. I was even so frightened by the copy that I slept on the street every day, ate cold food, and worked very hard just to save 100 points to offset the weekly requirement. Live one day at a time. Most of the guide group squatting near the point where the newcomers appear are such people. In addition, there are players who rely on their skills to purchase raw materials in the game, process them into clothing, food, furniture and other items and sell them. Over time, the safe zone becomes no different from the real world. At least, here you can also buy a delicious pancake fruit at the crossroads. It tastes exactly like the real world, but with healthier ingredients. Although Zuo Chenggen can't see the barrage full of obscenities now, he will not forget what he saw in the dungeon. Human beings are like animals in a zoo, being watched as amusement by some beings. No matter how hard he looked at the floating eyeballs in the copy, he couldn't see their annotations. It's possible that those eyeballs aren't from the game at all. If you want to uncover the existence hidden behind your eyeballs, you must have strength. Ladder Tower. This is a metal white tower that goes straight up and down like a steel pipe. It is also the tallest building in the No. 7 security zone. It is so tall that you cannot see the top floor. It perfectly fits its name, Ladder Tower. In the eyes of ordinary players, it may just be an ordinary metal tower covering a vast area. But in Zuo Chenggen's eyes, the Ladder Tower also had annotations. Ladder Tower, the road to becoming a god, can you seize the opportunity, ## stay. This line of comments is different from what Zuo Chenggen saw before. There is garbled code at the end of the most important line. The font is also a distinctive gold color. What kind of guy can't even read his name? Can he still have a skin? As soon as the thought came up, a chill ran down Zuo Chenggen's spine. In an instant, his innermost clothes were soaked with cold sweat, and endless fear enveloped him. What a stingy person. This time Zuo Chenggen cursed secretly. Of course, he has no hobby of committing suicide, and he did not think about the garbled characters of ## when he cursed this sentence. Sure enough, as long as you don't think about it, you won't have any bad feelings. Putting the unpleasant experience behind him, Zuo Chenggen approached the Ladder Tower. It's shocking enough when you look at it from a distance. As we got closer, the shock only increased. Players who have not climbed the ladder level all gather outside the first floor of the Ladder Tower. Only players whose level is on the first ladder or above are eligible to enter the tower. The main facilities here are the same as those in the dungeon lobby, with screens next to each other. Videos or pictures about the dungeon are played on it, and next to it are the name of the dungeon and the number of people required to open the dungeon. There is an aperture on the ground below the screen, and standing in it means you have selected the corresponding copy. Some copies will require more people, and the aperture will be correspondingly larger. Compared with the dungeon hall, the number of players here is smaller. There are only 1 or 2 people standing in many apertures, which is far from the standard for opening a dungeon. Once the matching time exceeds 1 hour, the people standing inside will be kicked out. Therefore, in order to improve efficiency, players form teams according to the number of people in advance and then enter together. A rough estimate is that there are more than 100 screens, enough for players to choose from. Bus number 412. One of the 5 is missing. One of the 5 is missing. Just come and drive. Desert tour group. 20 people. We still have 4 people to go before we can start. The members have unlimited drinking water. Don't worry about the water source. Island Hotel, stay in the presidential suite. Unlimited food. Completing the dungeon is like being on vacation. There are only 6 places left. Players cross out next to the copy to their teammates. If there are people who happen to be interested in the copy, they can find them and join in if they hear the sound. There are also those who are worried that the others are in a group and they will suffer a loss if they go in alone and watch from the sidelines. Zuo Chenggen was confused for a while and didn't know how to choose. In fact, he also has standards in his heart. Don't go if it's something supernatural or if it takes too long. It's best to follow the safe zone time and go back the same day. If the dungeon can provide very good accommodation or meals, then the second condition can be relaxed appropriately. Once the conditions are restricted like this, there won't be many choices. 14779 Uncle Red Eye's Farm. Zuo Chenggen paused and stopped in front of a screen. The pictures on the screen dutifully show the beautiful side of the farm. There are slices of ripe tomatoes, chickens walking with old hens, sheep and cows scattered on the grassy slopes. Looks pretty good. Zuo Chenggen is not the only one who is interested in the copy of 14779 Uncle Red Eye's Farm. Beside him, there were 2 players who looked like twin sisters carefully observing the pictures on the screen. Sister, look at this, it looks like it's a mission book. You can come back after completing the mission. The farm, the hostile creatures should be wolves, leopards, etc. There must be no zombie ghosts coming to show off, so why not choose this one? It's possible, but there are only 2 of us, and it takes 5 people to open the dungeon. Wouldn't it be enough to form 3 more? This screen is in a good location. Someone should be here soon. The twin sisters guessed correctly. Counting Zuo Chenggen, they attracted 4 more male players in less than 10 minutes. But Zuo Chenggen and his twin sisters have already entered the spotlight, occupying 3 places. The 4 newcomers didn't want to separate, so they had no choice but to find other copies. After another 2 minutes, a young couple came over to fill the last 2 vacant places. The moment the young couple entered the aperture, without any warning, Zuo Chenggen felt a slight pulling feeling. The next second, he smelled the scent of grass and earth, and when he opened his eyes, he found that he was standing next to a bus stop sign. The stop sign clearly read, Uncle Red Eye's Farm, in big characters. At the same time, I saw the copy's information in my mind. Copy. Uncle Red Eye's Farm. Number 14779. Task. Complete the work assigned to you by Uncle Red Eyes. Task time. 1 day. Mission background. There is a farm in Red Eye. The tomato sauce produced on the farm is very popular, but it has been in some trouble recently. Because it has been unable to recruit workers, the farm is seriously short of manpower. Fortunately, a group of hardworking and brave players arrived in time to fill the manpower vacancy. Warm reminder. Uncle Red Eyes in this copy is very gentle, but he hates lazy people. Please complete the task assigned to you by Uncle Red Eyes before the copy ends. The mission hasn't been released yet, and it seems that they have to wait for the NPC called Uncle Red Eyes to assign it to them. Moreover, compared to the newcomer version, Screaming Night, that he had completed before, the latter version has more mission backgrounds. 4 other players were also near the stop sign. 2 twins stood together, and the young lovers stuck together. Zuo Chenggen made the decision alone, so he naturally fell out. But he didn't have time to think about this, instead he focused all his attention on the surrounding air. The group of eyeballs with long tails of blood vessels appeared again. The number is much greater than in the copy of Screaming Night. If the average player in the Screaming Night instance follows only 1 eyeball. So in this dungeon, on average, a player will be surrounded by 3 to 5 eyeballs. These eyeballs surround the players, transmitting all the subtle changes in their expressions and every move to another group of people. The long-lost barrage reappeared in his sight. It's better to use the latter dungeon, which is all undisclosed and won't be spoiled by a bunch of people with cerebral palsy. Family members, who knows, what I hate the most is when I'm in the mood. There are barrage spoilers saying that monsters will rush out from somewhere, and there is no sense of horror at all. Who says it's not, and the quality of the copy is higher than the mentally retarded copies outside. Hehe, the main reason is that there are many pitfalls in the missions. I love to see players being tricked to death by missions. Anywhere is good, but there are too few people in this book. If they were all stupid, they would all be dead in a short time. Farm, will you die soon? Didn't you read the title of the live broadcast room? This is the farm of Red Eyes. It's the big rabbit who is so greedy for money. Up, pointing arrow down, pointing arrow. I remembered that rabbit who likes to dig holes for players the most. If it is it, it will be fun to watch now. Zuo Chengen extracted the key information in the barrage. The Uncle Red Eyes mentioned in the name of the dungeon is a rabbit. He seems to enjoy teasing players and has a very bad character. After learning this information, Zuo Chengen was already on alert even before he saw the so-called Red Eye. Other players are very experienced. This kind of dungeon with plot usually has NPCs to guide them. Now that the NPC has not arrived, they can simply get to know each other first to avoid the embarrassment of not being able to name each other when working together later. The twin sisters were the first to introduce. I am Fu Yu, and she is my sister Fu Yu. I have passed 4 first-level dungeons. All 3 items are full except for physical fitness. The mental level is above 70, which is very safe. The young couple followed closely and introduced themselves. Just call me Wang Guangfei. This is my girlfriend Yu Yu. There is a slight difference in the numerical values. We only have full speed points, but the high mental values are in the 80s. Zuo Cheng'an listened on the sidelines. They seemed to pay great attention to their spiritual value. What would happen if the spirit was too low? Thanks for watching.